How many hearts have you broken with those great big beautiful eyes? Those great big beautiful eyes that tell such beautiful lies.
How many times have you kissed somebody like you kissed me then? I don't.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all ships at sea. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you an important message from the Prepared Mind Network.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. An extra long opening there to piss off the extra big haters. Boy, I love to get to the haters. There's nothing I dislike more than someone who just hates because they hate. I don't hate, folks, right? But I want you prepared. Now, our enemies, on the other hand, they don't deserve our affection, our care, our consideration. Our enemies are our enemies. And I've got this little piece of news as I come to you from Uman's garage. It's dark, it's quiet, it's freaking cold. And I want to thank Uman for letting me use his place again on this wonderful Monday. It's a snow bomb that's falling. It's crazy. Cold, folks. But let's move on. Let's get to something that'll warm you up. It's a message from your favorite coffee company. Actually, they posted it and it's author unknown, but it came to me via Penelope, and I want to thank her for that. And whoever this author was, I guess we can anonymously thank them for putting down what I believe many of us, people like you and me, good Americans, I think it represents a lot of what we think. And Ranger Candy Coffee Company posted it. And again, Penelope sent it to me. And I want to read this to you and have you tell me what you think. And also, if you're on YouTube, subscribe at The Prepared Mind on Patreon.com. If you're on Patreon, get ready. We've got one heck of a live show for you. Here is the short message. The most terrifying force of death comes from the hands of, quote, men who want to be left alone, end quote. They try so very hard to mind their own business and provide for themselves and those they love. They resist every impulse to fight back, knowing the forced and permanent damage of life that will come from it. They know that the moment they fight back, their lives as they have lived them are over. The moment the, quote, men who wanted to be left alone, end quote, are forced to fight back, it is a form of suicide. They are literally killing off who they used to be, which is why, when forced to take up violence, these, quote, men who want to be left alone, end quote, these men will fight with unholy vengeance against those who murdered their former lives. They fight with raw hate and a drive that cannot be fathomed by those who are merely play acting at politics and terror. True terror will arrive at these people's doors, and they will cry, scream, and beg for mercy. But it will fall upon deaf ears of the men who wanted to be left alone. What I can tell you, folks, is I understand exactly what this unknown author's message is all about. When you are shot at by someone else, when you engage in enemy with your own weapon, you step over a line. When you stand up for morality and decency and you know you're going to be punished, you've crossed a line. right? I've engaged, I've done this thing that's described here on different levels at different times in my life. And as soon as you fight back, the lives of you have lived them, right? My life as I lived it, it was over. When I took action as a Marine, my former life was over. When I took action in my personal life to help others, my life ended, and a new version of it continued from there. We have tyranny in our country right now, folks. And when someone kicks down your door, whether they pretend to be an authority figure or outright act like total tyrants, your life is over, and someone else made the decision for you. And I know that is why, folks, exactly why so many of us are frustrated, pissed off. We would love to take action, but we know that once you cross that line, once you take that action, our lives, as we have lived them, it's over. And at that moment, you've given everything up, and you're now at the mercy and whim and will of fate and what it has in store for you. And that is SHTF Mad Max, folks. When will it visit us? When will we see it face to face? That is a question that many people ask. It's a question, it's a thought that many people want. They want to know, when does this happen so I can be ready? So the life I have lived, I can set aside and deal with this other stuff head on, fully, 100%, with a raw hatred and drive for the enemy that can only be satiated by dispensing them properly, fully, and permanently. I get it. I get it, folks. I've stood in the face of tyranny. I get it. Thankfully, it didn't utterly destroy my life, but it certainly changed it on several different occasions. Shit hitting the fan is something we've been waiting for. Not with glee, not with pleasure, but as an inevitable consequence of the actions taken by the evil people in Washington, D.C., the bureaucracy, elected politicians, and the bankers and corporations out there who are puppet mastering the political leaders and the powerful. Let us move on, folks. I'm telling you, we have some SHTF. You know, it is hard hitting today. I want to get to everything I can, folks, everything I can with you, right? I want to let you know who our asshole enemies are. This comes from the liar in chief, the hypocrite in chief, Gigi Biden. Here's his quote. Quote, "You can't love your country only when you win. You can't obey the law only when it is convenient. You can't be patriotic when you embrace and enable lies." So what he is telling me is that every member of the Democrat Party, every member of BLM and Antifa, every member of the mainstream media are a bunch of hypocrites and liars, and they do not love the country. Because they don't love the country when they don't win. They hate it, and they hated Trump, and they hate you. They hate all veterans. They hate all patriots. They hate all Republicans. They want to lock you up if you have not gotten the Jim Jones juice. They say, or Biden said, you can't obey the law only when it's convenient. You mean like when BLM and Antifa are causing billions of dollars in damage, assaulting, maiming, and murdering policemen, assaulting, maiming, and murdering civilians, looting stores, burning stores, burning police cars, burning police stations, destroying tradition and history and statues. In schools, they're removing history, they're changing history, they're rewriting history. Obeying the law when it's convenient. That is a Democrat function. I don't know, folks, of Republicans violating the law to the degree that it would require this sort of response from the president. It sounds like he's talking about his own party, but he is the hypocrite in chief. He is the projectionist in chief, projecting his problems, his party's beliefs and actions onto us. Right? They don't want us to speak. In Washington state, Their smelly Governor Inslee, he wants new legislation, folks. He wants legislation to make it a crime for politicians to lie about election results. I want to know who's lying. I want to know who has free speech rights. I want to know who gets to complain. How are we supposed to know if there has been, right, an election problem? How are we supposed to know? How should we even begin to become suspicious if no one's allowed to talk? Because the Democrats and the mainstream media will always call anything any Republican says a lie. See, they will lie to call someone else a liar so that their lie, as they proclaim, becomes a crime. So in other words, it is criminal to disagree with Democrats and the mainstream media. And again, they are just puppets of the high, powerful, wealthy, corporate and banker elite. This is America, folks. This is not the Soviet Union. This is not Nazi Germany. This is the United States of America and what we are dealing with. Are you prepared? Get your questions into Jolene. Your comments, questions, statements. Your inquiring minds want to know. This is your chance, folks. You can ask anonymously. You can put your name up there. I don't have to make you famous, but what you say and think could very well be the rallying cry, the next great thought that enters the patriot space, right? The space between our ears. All the trolls out there who don't like me, I occupy space in their head because they hear what I say and it pisses them off. They don't like the fact that I can use satire to make a point. They don't like that. They can't handle it because I say it's satire and they hear, I'm telling the truth, right? And they can't handle the truth.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
My favorite scene, one of my favorite scenes of all time. But folks, get this. I want to put AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, old horse choppers herself. I want to put her on a witness stand and ask her what she knew about the January 6th, quote, insurrection a week before it happened. Who told her? Why didn't she do anything about it? Right? Is she lying yet again? Oh, yeah. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is a lying POS. Like being on the southern border and crying over the caged children as she stood next to a cyclone fence. And she just acted like your heart was breaking. It was a photo op. It was bullshit. And she also claimed, folks, that she was almost killed on January 6th of 2021. And she wasn't even in the Capitol building. Right? Can she just lie anytime she wants? You know, can AOC, right, the woman who can eat an apple through a picket fence, can she lie her ass off, get media exposure, sympathy, and political power? Is there ever responsibility on her part if the following is true? And can she be held responsible? Here's a quote from her. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is her quote. 1 week before, the week prior to the insurrection, I started to get text messages that I needed to be careful. And that, in particular, I need to be careful about the 6th. You know what? I think not only is she lying, but she's doing it for political power, sympathy, more media exposure. I don't think she will ever be held responsible because she is like a petulant little girl and a bitch at that, who is allowed to say whatever she wants because she can run to mommy. She can run to daddy. She can run to some authority figure and demand, right? Little Johnny pulled my hair. Little Susie kicked me in the shin. Little Debbie called me names. And she always gets everyone else in trouble. And she figured out she can lie because nobody ever holds her feet to the fire. Nobody ever asks her the hard questions. Now, folks, these politicians, as far as I'm concerned, have gone too freaking far. Remember how I told you that Emmanuel Macron, president of France, said, our citizens that have not gotten the Jim Jones juice, they're practically not citizens. They're not citizens. I don't think of them as citizens, right? He said he was going to, quote, piss off the people. Well, the people over the weekend, as I reported, discussed, talked, gave you my opinion on the matter, decided to protest very loudly, very forcefully, and said, we're going to piss you off, speaking to Emmanuel Macron, who's probably hiding in his wife mother's lap right now. Well, guess what the French have continued to do, to move on to do? They went to a parliament member's home. That's right, folks. People who are in parliament, or if you will, people who are in Congress, they have homes. They can be found. They are not untouchable. And this is not me recommending or encouraging any violence, harmful or dangerous behavior. I don't violate terms of service. I don't violate community guidelines, nothing. I don't do any of these bad things. The context of the show is satire. It's all satire. Now, French protesters have gone to a parliament member's home. And guess what they did when said jackass stuck his French face out in public? They chucked mud and garbage at him, because that's what he is to the French people. Right? Mud represents shit. Garbage, well, it's filth. It's garbage. It's refuse. Governments around the world are now realizing that they have zero respect from the people, and what the people better realize, and this is my cautionary statement to you, hey, to myself, to everyone else internationally, if we think they're garbage because of the way they have been treating us, if we think of them as garbage, how do you think they think of us? You, me, all of us, right? This is nothing new, folks. This is nothing new. They think of us as garbage. They think of us as shit, and that they can shit on us, and as Macron said, piss us off. That's what they think they can do. This is coming down to us and them, the people and the powerful. Powerful includes, folks, federal or national level politicians, regional or state level politicians, local, city, municipal, county politicians, bureaucrats federal, bureaucrats state, bureaucrats local, also work for the government and think that you're shit and that they're special, right? They understand they have special privileges. Much the way my friend says, well, I went to be a cop again, so at least I can have a gun. He's a good guy. But it's that idea that, well, I'm in the government, I get special privilege, and I'm going to exercise it and use it to my benefit. So they do. That's fine to a degree, but when you start using that power, that authority, that privilege granted by the people to hurt the people, that's when we get into this situation where people show up at a parliament member's house and throw mud and garbage at them. Is it justifiable to do such things? Who am I to say? I'm not a Frenchman. I'm an American, right? I'm an American. I know what I think. But before we come back home, I want to talk about Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, John, no, not Kirplekistan, not the fake country in Austin Powers, right? Kazakhstan. The nation of Kazakhstan is a former Soviet republic, is part of the, I believe, Russian Federation. Kazakhstan makes 40% of the world's uranium, which is needed to produce nuclear energy. Nuclear energy in the United States is 20% of all the power created here. We get rid of our nuclear, lights go off, food goes bad, SHTF, Mad Max. Other countries have a little less nuclear, other countries have a little more nuclear power, but without nuclear, folks, the world gets dark awfully quick. The world gets cold awfully quick. That's how big of a deal Kazakhstan plays, folks. That's how big a deal Kazakhstan plays. Let's see, does the United States produce uranium? Yeah, we have uranium mines here. They're right now shuttered. They're shut down because the price is so low that they can't afford to do anything, believe it or not. The next biggest producer after Kazakhstan is Canada, and their mines are also shut down because the price is so beat down. What is going on, folks? I don't know, but let me push this at you. Never mind the lights on and off and shit, it's the fan. Never mind, electricity in our grid and the lights going off and SHTF Mad Max. Kazakhstan had something happen, and it just allowed me to talk a little bit about its role in the world, power, why we need global unity, not global death and destruction, right? The Kazakhstan leader, right, their president, if you will, says that order has been restored. There were riots in the streets. People were shooting at the police. The military showed up. They were attacked and retreated. Right? They retreated. They didn't shoot at their people, but we were told that this was a protest over gasoline, that these violent protesters were acting violent. They went into government buildings and burned government buildings. They went and burned public property. They went and did all these things. Isn't this interesting, folks? Sound familiar? Sound like BLM and Antifa? Well, Russia said, you know what, fuck that. We're going to send in some troops to help you restore order. And they did. 164 people were killed. 8,000 arrests were made. That makes a little bit of sense, doesn't it? But what makes more sense is that the Kazakh leader said that there was a coup d'etat, folks. There was an attempt to overthrow the government of Kazakhstan, the country that produces 40% of the world's nuclear fuel. What was the CIA doing in Iran in the 1950s? Hardcore, folks. They were screwing with the oil supply. The CIA did a coup in Iran in the 1950s because we relied heavily on oil and gas and still do. But back then it was huge to get the Shah of Iran installed in Iran. A puppet government, puppet regime operated through the CIA in the 1950s. They eventually got rid of it, had their own revolution in the 1970s, threw out the Shah of Iran, installed the Ayatollah Khomeini, and have forever been fighting since the 1970s with the United States government and been under sanction because the CIA wanted to take over that country and control the oil market. So now we have Kazakhstan, 40% of the world's nuclear energy. And with all of the green mandates, uranium, folks, nuclear energy is being reclassified as green because it has a no carbon footprint, because it is proven to be extremely safe, that they have revamped and remodeled and redone all the nuclear reactors so that they don't melt down or blow up, short of a false flag attack, of course. But understand, folks, to me, it's easy to see the CIA wanting to control Kazakhstan so they can control the nuclear fuel market. The same way Iran wasn't the whole oil market of the world, but it certainly was a big old chunk. A coup was stopped, folks. It's about energy. It's about electricity. Energy and electricity provide mechanical power, political power. Is there a difference? Yeah, there is. Are they both required to run a country, to control a country? Yes. Unbelievable, folks. Unbelievable. Now, let's move back here to the United States of America. We've got this little problem with CNN and the fact that their producers, their employees are in trouble and accused of child sex crimes. So Project Veritas tried running down Wolf Blitzer, Jake Tapper, and Anderson Cooper, right? I don't know, were they going to their cars? They tried to get on a train? Well, they got caught. The sissies ran away when they were confronted, folks. They refused to answer and try and explain Are they the most trusted name in news, folks? Or like that, are they the least trusted people in the world for what they are doing, for the lies that they continue to tell, perpetuate, pass along, and censor? Now, I'm a little hot under the collar, and it's just day one of the week. And before I go on any further, I want to thank the anonymous donor who sent me this, an 18-year-old bottle of scotch, Glenlivet. Thank you very much for that. That is going to help those difficult days, folks, when I'm so pissed off that I just need to step back and go, I'm sick of what's happening. I'm sick of it, but you know, there's a problem there, right? There's a problem. I'm one of those men who want to be left alone. And so I put things off, and I don't get involved. I don't step out there and start doing things the way they ought to be done, should be done, and the only way they can be done to have a positive effect. I just want to be left alone, but they won't leave me or you or any of us alone. They won't leave our country alone. They won't leave our Constitution alone. They won't leave our laws alone. Nope. Nope. Like, if this happened to my son, I think it would be hard to not leave it all alone. There's a family out there who lost a loved one. His name was Derek Andrew McIntosh. And I'm going to read to you his epitaph. Okay. He was essentially psychologically forced. It's called coercion. It's called duress. It's called threatening someone's life. We call them mandates. During the last weeks of his life, the world turned dark with heavy-handed mandates. The governments were determined to strip away his right to consult his wisdom and enjoy his freedom. He had been vehemently opposed to taking the Jim Jones juice. So thank you, Joe Biden, for bringing on a premature death of a life not fully lived. Real people are being hurt, folks. Real people are being killed. And right now, there's something going on. There's some sort of hemorrhagic fever being reported over the last week in China. It's my opinion, folks, that people who have weak immune systems, people who have had their immune systems affected, people who have had their immune system weakened, their immune systems are now tuned to looking for a specific form of cerveza, making them more susceptible to things far different, but equally or more deadly. And I would certainly say more deadly. We have Ebola, like I said, China, hemorrhagic fever. What if that gets out? Probably won't affect someone like me, someone with a strong immune system, someone who uses Scottish water to disinfect his mouth, and right? But what if you have a weakened immune system? What if you have comorbidities? Now, this is not me. So understand, folks, understand science. Understand science. Science. This is from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. I'm not making this up. These are not my words. The CDC director is Walensky, and she has admitted something, folks. This is a quote from the head of the CDC. The CDC is the authority when it comes to all things disease. Quote, the overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least four comorbidities. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with. Folks, I want you to be sure and listen to the CDC and the experts. Take your medicine. Do as you're told. Be good Americans. Right? Unbelievable. Does the truth come out quietly in a way not easily understood by the average person? But it comes out nonetheless. Do you think anyone's going to learn? Anyone's going to figure it out unless they've already figured it out? No, folks. The people you see out there wearing masks, the people you see out there keeping 6 feet away from everyone with wide eyes like huge donuts, scared to death of everyone else, they will not figure this out. They're going to line up, folks. They're going to keep lining up. They're a bunch of weak, jelly-minded snowflakes. Okay, so I want to let you know, folks, the CDC is the authority. They know exactly what's going on. They'll tell you what you need to believe. Oh my gosh, it is to me, it is just unbelievable where this all leads. And there's nowhere you can go to get real truth, real facts, folks, without getting censored, right? CNN is worried, folks, that people are tuning out. They're not listening to CNN. Isn't this incredible, folks? They're worried that people won't listen to them anymore, and they think that we're the problem. They don't understand that their lies are causing people to not want to listen to them. They're not the most trusted name in news. They might be the most known and well-known, child sex crime perverts in media, the CNN. Obviously, they're getting in some trouble for that. But they're certainly not the most trusted name in news. And they're worrying that people are tuning them out, not listening to them because of fear porn, right? They're tuning out their fear porn, right? It's unbelievable. So they're now begging for attention. They're begging for ratings. And folks, people aren't afraid of cerveza-bug. That fear is failing. And so I really believe that it is going to be time for the new fear to come. And I talked about that in the last video, right? Cerveza-bug won't go away. In the blue areas, the blue states, and especially blue cities, they'll keep it up. They'll keep the mandates out there. They'll be punishing people, attacking people, destroying people because they think it's cute, pushing people to the utmost limits, maybe even opening up a few internment camps out there. But people are going to quit believing it. They're now just obeying to be left alone. But there's going to be time for the new fear, folks. Cue the Patriot Front false flag army of the political left to try and scare the country into believing they're actually right-wing lunatics and they're terrorists. That's coming. Watch my last video, folks. I went into that in some detail. Now, I've gotten a little bit long. I know I always do when it comes back from the weekend, right? You guys grilled me on Sunday Night Live, had a great time there. But it's time to get into this week and what's going on. I've got a bunch of stuff, folks, but it's time to switch over to you guys. It's time, folks. It's time for the Q&A. So let's get to it. Let's have some fun. It is your turn.
Are you ready?
Alrighty, I love the intros, the outros, the transition pieces. Thank you, Mr. T, for all of the great work you've done. All right, let's see what we got. We have Oregon Patriot checks in and gives us a quote from our good buddy Abraham Lincoln, the man who brought to us the copper penny. He says, quote, America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. We've allowed our country to be taken over from within. The stepping stone of socialism will lead to communism if we don't wake up as a nation. It's hard not to disagree, Organ Patriot, with your statements there that, yeah, we've been taken over. If we allow socialism, what's to stop communism? You see, this is the problem with socialism. It is the antithesis. It's opposite. It's anathema to the Constitution and freedom and liberties. To have socialism, you have to force people to participate, force them to participate in Social Security, government-sponsored retirement. You have to force them into medicine, Obamacare. You have to force them into all of these social programs, because in order to have a social program work, you have to get people into it, take their money, and redistribute it. It is communism light. Right? Remember, there's social fascism on the left and then social communism right next to it. Those aren't right and left. They are both extreme left. Socialism and communism are both extreme left principles. Extreme left principles. And they both require an authoritative, tyrannical government to force people to obey them. Now, when I start using words that sound like hyperbole, it's not. What is the government trying to do right now in the United States of America? Well, the Supreme Court is now listening to a case about whether or not the President of the United States has a right to force everyone to mandate they do what he says with regard to their health care, without even using Congress to write legislation. The president has said, never mind, hold my Geritol. I'm going to give you guys what you need. And this clown of a man, this dementia-induced delirium he has, is that he has the power, or he's just a puppet and he's being told, hey, you have the power to do this, Joe. So the president is now the autocratic lawmaker known as a dictator. He can single-handedly create a mandate. Where in the Constitution does he get this power? See, this idea that executive orders can come as an order from the president and that we must obey is hell and gone from the constitutional boundaries and limitations that were set. Now, I understand that throughout history, we've had lots of executive orders. I understand that presidents have suspended portions of the Constitution, going as far back as our good buddy Abraham Lincoln, who suspended habeas corpus, who went to war against his own country. I'm not a fan of Abraham Lincoln at all, folks. The Democrats were the ones who, wanted slavery, not the Republicans. But Abraham Lincoln wanted to force Southern states to obey him. He wanted to force people, folks. I'm not for slavery, but I am for freedom, that's for sure. Freedom for everybody. And to distinguish between the two. The Democrats don't want you to make any distinguishing conclusions for yourself. They want to tell you. They want to tell you to take the juice. So the Supreme Court is now deciding, do we have an elite-ocracy with the jackass in chief? Do we have that? Or do we have a constitutional republic? Is the government supreme? Or are the people sovereign? Did we create a government so that the government can tell us what to do even when we don't want to hear it? That's like having children, folks, and then saying, hey, children, tell us what to do and we'll obey you without question. And if anyone acts like children in this country, it's the fucking politicians in D.C. It is the bureaucrats in D.C. It is the judges who act like highly educated children, but petulant children nonetheless, thinking that they're like gods and that everyone else must obey because, they're officials. Unbelievable, folks. This is how good men and women are pushed and pushed and pushed. They want to be left alone. And when they get pushed too far, folks, there is that permanent, life-changing moment that comes. And the world will forever be changed again. You may remember and have heard of Lexington and Concord in U.S. history. Lexington and Concord, where the first shots were fired. The shots heard around the world. The revolt against the supreme power on the planet, the British Empire and the king himself. The shots heard around the world. Good men who wanted to just be left alone, but the King of England would not stop, would not back off, would not call off his dogs, would not call off his redcoats, his bureaucrats, his tax collectors, his governors. He kept at it, pushing and pushing and pushing, stealing people's wealth, raping their women, burning their farms, destroying their cities, blockading their ports. Have I said enough? How far did the men, the good men of America in the colonies, have to be pushed before they said no more? Folks, they weren't pushed around for 1 year or the early 1970s. They were pushed around for decades by the King of England. And it just got to be so bad and so pervasive, they finally said enough. And that's when it happened. That's when the men who said they just wanted to be left alone could no longer refuse their consciences, and they stepped up. That time is going to come. Again, I'm not glamorizing or glorifying it. It is a fact that in history these things happen. They're rare, but when they do, folks, when they do. Let us move on if we shall. What do you want to talk about? Let's get back into it. We've got David. He says, John, this world we are fighting for may be a lost cause. Our children's children will give it up, all up anyway, just for a chance to live in the metaverse. It is like the Matrix come to life and they're just going to march right up and plug themselves in. I have something to say to that. I understand that sentiment because we look at our children as children. Right now, our children are free to do what they want. They can play outside. They can plug into their computers. But something I think is happening right now. Folks, I grew up with computers. I had an Atari, go to the arcade and play games. But at some point you grow up, right? You go to work, you get a job, and you develop adult dreams. Now the government, social media, big tech, computer companies, they want to keep everyone locked in to the computer world, demanding more high tech. But I spent some time talking with Crispy Bacon today. He checked in a couple of times last night on the zoo. But I talked to him today and said, you know what? Let's look at history. Think about this, folks, right now. Way, way, way back, Alexander Graham Bell did what? He invented the phone. And he strung up, right, a phone here and a wire and another phone, and they could talk through it. A little bit of electricity, a little bit of connectivity, phone. Now, along the way, there were a couple improvements in the phone. They went from the kind where it's got the cone and you wind the thing up and you got to hold the thing to your ear and talk into the mouthpiece, right? To everything was on one handle. Holy cow, you picked the phone up off the base, hold it to your head, and you dialed the number. They still call it dialing. Can you dial my number? I'm pretty sure they still call it dialing. But the dial phone gave way to the push button phone, right? Dial my number. There's no dial, it's push buttons. Then they had a long kind of coily cord so you could walk further from the phone. Then they came up with cordless phones. Just a few innovations, but that's what the phone is for, talking to people. Now, follow me here. Follow me. We've got all this fantastic fucking technology. Computers, touchscreens, phones, computers. They've taken all that shit, including cameras, and put it into the cell phone. Your cell phone, folks, is a phone. Your cell phone is a camera. Your cell phone is your work database. Your cell phone is video games. right? The cell phone does many things for us. Where can they go from here? Like Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the phone, and it stayed basically the same for 100 years. Some minor changes, some minor improvements in functionality. How much further can they go with this computer virtual phone shit? Right? You can pick up an iPhone 3, the first iPhone smartphone with touchscreen, and it still works today and still does basically the same shit. Right? It's just smaller and a little more simple. There have not been any great innovations. What else can they do? Well, but let's see if you decide to. I had one thing left. Yeah, and they can have your passport on your phone, right? They want to make sure that last thing they put on your phone is your passport. That's the last thing to go on there, right? What other technology can we use? What else makes it useful? Actually, they're just done. So this idea that our kids are just going to be these morons, I agree, there's a lot of morons out there. But is there something more important than this thing? Is there something more important than this? If you aren't free, what good is your phone? If you're not free, right? People are learning and understanding what freedom is about. They've lost it. And folks, they don't even realize what they've lost, right? Until they're going to lose some more. People are dying right now. People's lives are destroyed. People's wealth is being destroyed. They're going to have a hard time figuring out, folks, what comes next. Games are a distraction. There's a lot of distractions out there that don't really matter. Education, it would seem, is a distraction for kids because it's not really education. It's just a bunch of social games and bullshit at school, being conditioned, brainwashed, and programmed. Right? There's something more important to that. Something that doesn't require a phone. It requires a soul and an intellect. And I've marveled, folks, for my whole life, well before these Gen Zers and millennials came along, long before them. I kind of marveled at how stupid people were and how they actually worship stupidity and pretended like it was cool to be dumb and not know. Because I remember back in school, people going, I don't know the answer. Like, fuck you, teacher. And I'm thinking, well, I know what kind of job you're going to have when you're older. You want fries with that is going to be a question that you ask dozens of times a day. Girls and boys, they didn't want to know anything. They wanted to act stupid and have people like them for it. I guess we're always going to have those kind of people. But here we are, folks. Shit has hit the fan. It's getting worse. Freedoms are disappearing. Yeah, these kids, they're going to find out. Just like these Antifa punks. They're like, hey, we're allowed to protest violently and we're getting our asses kicked. Why isn't anyone sticking up for us? Well, because you're assholes. You don't have rights that no one else does. They think the world revolves around them. They're absolutely wrong. They're finding out that when they get their ass kicked, right, someone's going to help them, I guess. That's what they think. But they're that dumb, folks. They're that dumb. They think their rights need to be maintained and yours need to be abandoned. They're going to find out that that's not how the world really works. We're going to have some serious problems coming up in the next few years having to do with food, folks. Food is going to become an issue. Let's move on, though. I know I'm getting long-winded. The Slim One checks in and says, what do you think the chances of us going after our local health departments, maybe getting them to sign a declaration to not follow any mandates where our lives are in? We're going to have a lot of problems. We're not to the point, in my opinion, where we, the people, we're not the point there where we, the people, have realized en masse, mass majority, that everyone has been lied to, that people are forever damaged, their health ruined. We're not to that point yet. People are just starting to see it, though. Why are all these soccer players keeling over, having heart attacks, quitting the sport because they have an inflamed, enlarged heart. The average person, folks, with a normal heart who doesn't run around outside all day long, kicking a ball, chasing a puck, they're not athletes, super athletes, so they don't realize that their heart is affected. It is these super athletes who require their perfect heart pounding away in their chest, bah, 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 without fault, to be those super athletes at that level, in tennis, in soccer, in football. And when you affect that muscle and they get myocarditis, enlarged heart, because it's getting ripped up and torn up from the inside, that's when they go, heart attack, and they fall over. That's why they're falling over, folks. But it's happening on the street. People having heart attacks, strokes, freaking blowing their arteries off their heart, all kinds of troubles out there, folks. When the people fully wake up, there's going to be more than a call for the local health department. Much like that politician, that parliamentarian in France. People are going to find out where their local politicians are, their health, shall we say, health and safety officers are in their counties or cities, and they're going to ask them some questions. By the time we get to that point, I don't think we're going to ask them to sign anything saying we're not going to do that again. We're going to fucking tell them, never again will we follow your orders because of what you have done, because you followed the orders of your boss and they followed the orders of their boss and their people at the top. And now everyone is suffering from it, except those, of course, who chose not to drink the Jim Jones juice. Let me tell you, folks, where these experts are at, because I've got more good news from the experts, folks. Quick, get in line for your next Jim Jones juice, right? The CEO of Pfizer, the company that everybody should be thanking. They will have an Omicron-specific COVID vaccine ready by March. That's what they're saying. Isn't that great news? They're going to have an Omicron-specific COVID vaccine ready by March. Everyone line up to get your shots. Do it. Because they're the experts. Do it. Right? And the world is going to basically do it. There's going to be this percentage that just run out and do it. They get another one. At some point in the future, people are going to realize what happened. If you make a mistake once and do something stupid, do you keep doing it? Do you keep putting that fork in the electrical outlet? Right? Do you keep doing it? No, you don't. At least I wouldn't. Apparently other people think, well, if I keep putting the fork on the socket, it's going to fix things. Unbelievable. Thank you, Slim One. Folks, remember the context in which I speak. I speak with all satire. Context. This is not a news show. It's satire. It's what I'm allowed. It's what you're allowed. It's what we're all allowed. I don't tell anyone what to think or provide anything wrong or misinformation. I told you specifically what the CDC says. I told you specifically what the CEO of Pfizer has said. I'm not news. I'm just saying, look at this. They're telling you right now. They're the experts. Wow. Now, Latin American Preparedness checks in. He says 12 states are considering door-to-door administration of Jim Jones juice. And those refusing to get it will go to internment camps. What should a person do if a strike force goes to your home wanting to administer their favorite Kool-Aid? Well, I'll tell you what. This could be one of those moments, folks. Now, I know that Washington, the state of Washington, is the one that made a big splash. Are there other states? You're saying there's 12 states. It wouldn't surprise me if they're thinking about it. This idea that the president is going to be told by the Supreme Court one of two things. They're going to either say, you have no authority to do these mandates, or you have authority to do these mandates. But if they say, no, those rights are reserved to the states, well, then the states are like, oh, I guess we get to tell our people what to do. So let's do it. Right? Anytime they're told they have the authority, They were like, hey, power, let's exercise it. As far as I'm concerned, no state has the power to do this. There is no emergency according to the way I see things. Like, there's no emergency here in Uman's garage. There's no emergency, so why are you here? Why are you knocking on my door? Why are you telling me what I have to do? Why? People just want to be left alone. So now they're going to come to your home. If they can't sucker you, if they can't scare you, if they can't threaten you, then next is for them to come to your home. You men and women who want to be left alone. They're going to, if you refuse, drag you off to a concentration camp, an internment camp, a health camp like they are in Australia. Well, the fuck you will, as far as I'm concerned. I don't have to tell everyone, folks, about their Second Amendment right. I don't have to tell everyone about their right to refuse unlawful government orders. I don't have to tell everyone that government's awful, awesome. Governments awfully make decisions. They often make awful decisions that the people don't discover are illegal, unethical, immoral, unconstitutional for years or decades later. And then they find out, oh, geez, you mean that was the wrong thing to do? Yeah, Nazis, it was the wrong thing to do. So now you get to go to prison. You get to be killed for being a Nazi and following orders. Just because an authoritative person says something doesn't make it right. Just because some jackass in a robe who calls himself a judge doesn't make it right. In fact, there are many lawyers, doctors, experts, professionals, scientists who say, statesmen, politicians, elected, bureaucrats, etc., who say that everything is being done right now in the name of the Jim Jones juice. Everything that's being done right now is a violation. It is a violation of the Nuremberg Code. That set of rules, the Nuremberg Code, that were written, folks, at the end of World War II during the Nazi trials, when they discovered how it was that those unlawful orders, those violations of human rights occurred, and they said this should never happen again, and here it is, a code to ensure this doesn't happen again. And here we are with governments violating that code. Folks, violating the code verbatim. They're not even doing workarounds, as the Biden administration said Joe is doing. Oh yeah, this is a great workaround. The Supreme Court knows that was said, that what the president is doing with his mandates is trying to do a workaround. Supreme Court said it, repeated it. It's a workaround. Huh? Really? Unbelievable, folks. There are going to be massive consequences, right? The Supreme Court, folks, the liberal justices there are using the time is of the essence, panic, to an almost apocalyptic degree. Justice Stephen Breyer kept mentioning every second that they wait, more people are getting cerveza bug. And he incorrectly stated that 750 million new cases occurred yesterday. Folks, 750 million. More than double the U.S. population magically got cerveza bug in a day. That's one justice. So these people in black robes are brilliant and should just be worshipped because of the uniform they have, a nice black dress. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Obama appointee, stated as a fact. Her fact was that, quote, the unicorn is as deadly as the other one, the Delta, and causes as much serious disease as the other one did. I'm not an expert, folks. I just read to you what Justice Sotomayor said. She claimed that we have over 100,000 children in serious condition. Huh? It's unbelievable, folks. Justice Elena Kagan, and I'm sure a lot of you don't know who Kagan is. He's like one of those people that you look at in your school picture, and you're like, who is that person? I don't remember their name, their face, or anything they ever did. What the fuck are they doing there? That's Justice Elena Kagan, one of the justices no one's ever heard of, right? She claimed that, quote, the best way to prevent cerveza bug is for people to get the Jim Jones juice. I thought she was a judge. I didn't know she was an expert. I didn't know she was as smart as Dr. Fauci. I didn't know that. And then she said the second best way is to wear masks. Now, the lawyers that were arguing the case immediately challenged what she said. This is why they don't do oral arguments at the Supreme Court level, because the Supreme Court justices prove time and time again that most of them are idiots, that they don't understand what's going on, that they live in a fucking bubble in Washington, D.C., and that they're so out of touch, folks, so absolutely out of touch that they need their clerks to write things that make sense for the rest of the world to understand, or we're going to realize what a bunch of dumbasses these people are. And I'm not even going to mention Justice Roberts. All right, folks. All right. This is what I have to say. The major questions, right? The major questions doctrine, which is what the court is trying to use. The big question here, the major questions doctrine maintains that courts should not defer to agency, or agency means bureaucratic, right? Their doctrine maintains that the Supreme Court, the courts, should not defer to agency statutory interpretations. In other words, they're saying that when it comes to big questions, the courts shouldn't let the bureaucrats determine what is and is not a right, right? Because they say that interpretations of the underlying questions concern vast economic or political significance. As far as I'm concerned, fuck the economic and political significance of these questions being asked, these major questions. How about the constitutional significance, tards? How about the people's inalienable rights that are under question here? Screw economic and political crap. Screw the significance of their economic and political thoughts. How about the constitutional significance? Folks, wake up, right? The rest of the American people need to wake up. The Supreme Court isn't supposed to decide political questions, but it is supposed to protect the constitutional security for the nation, the republic, from abuses and outright tyranny, as in Let's Go Brandon and his mandates. It's about our rights. The Bill of Rights is about our rights. The Constitution is about limiting government. So it would seem to me that the Supreme Court's job is to protect our rights and limit the government, not worry about economic or political significance of anyone's decision. We're in big trouble, folks. This is hard-hitting SHTF crap, and it's coming at you live. Are you prepared? Chance favors the prepared mind. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. Thank you, everybody, for today sending me information, your opinions, news stories, videos, etc. Thank you for sending all of that. Every day I prepare for this show. Every day I come to this microphone, whether I'm in the bunker, in the office, or in the garage. Every day I come here to talk with you guys and share your ideas that you share with me. Try and present them in a way that is easy to understand for all of us. And much like that speech, that prose, that poetry in motion from the author unknown, men who want to be left alone. You know, how else can we explain it? They want to go door to door. They want to lock people up. They want to take the rest of your rights and freedoms. What child is going to support the idea that their parents are no longer with them? What child is going to support the idea that the government is their new parent, but gives them nothing but pain and suffering, that makes them sick, that locks them up? What kind of parent is that? Yeah, children are going to grow up. They're going to wake up in a dystopian world with us, and they're going to realize who is the enemy and who is not. People need to wake up and realize, these liberal scumbags out here, that it is not their job, it is not their duty, it is certainly not their right, and they don't have the authority to tell us what to do because they are scared. Their fear does not constitute an emergency on my part in which I have to obey their edicts and their commands, their mandates, because they're afraid, they're fearful, or because they have a secret agenda that they're unfurling on the world. Are you prepared? Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Aren't you glad you're a prepper? Godspeed, Semper Fi, and get upset, get angry. Don't do anything bad, but use that excitement within yourself, knowing what's going on. Use that excitement to tell others to get prepared. That's the best we can do right now, folks. Right? That's the best we can do, is get prepared and help others do the same. It's going to get nasty, nastier. Semper Fi and Godspeed.